And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the semifinals of the Elite Series League of Legends second division. First and foremost, I have to excuse myself for my attire. I got freshly tattooed on the shoulder and I wish to not cover it for now, so I'll be wearing this. I'm sorry about that, but don't worry about it. Now, let me introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, my co-caster for tonight, which is none other than Prashtana. Welcome.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. It's nice to be with you, and no worries, I'm not really closed up a little bit better, so we are fine. We are really leger, and so it's totally fine for me. And it's a nice tattoo. So I mean,
Thank you, thank you.
Is it a butterfly?
It is a moth.
A moth.
And actually, it was we retouched it because I originally did it at a convention in Luxembourg.
Oh.
But we couldn't finish because I was bleeding profusely. I had a problem with the coloring part. So, and because the artist is in Brussels, luckily I was able to get it done this time around, and went better. I didn't bleed as much. So yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it sounds horrifying to bleed. I mean, it's that's why I don't know. I have no tattoos, so I never witnessed it. But no, that's nice. Why do you got a moth? Is the moth your favorite animal? Is it your Patronus? Is it I don't know.
Nothing in particular. It was a flash that she had at the convention, and she had another one with a bee, which was my favorite, but that one was already taken, so I settled for the moth one, which was my second favorite. And I did. She was really nice, very nice of her. I asked if I could have one red eye, and she did. Nice. And in order for it to look good, she made like so many adaptations to the original color scheme to keep it looking good. And like that's the extra step she went, which is really nice. But for the rest, it's a pre-made flash, which I just found neat. No special meaning.
And nice to hear. But I guess we could talk more about tattoos, but we should maybe go back to why we are here, I guess. I'm sorry for those questions, but today we are here for Reapers against SLOTHS. So if we can just get the graphic for the tournament, for the bracket, that would be amazing then, because we will see that both teams actually won their first round in a really dominant fashion, I would say. Or no, Reapers won in the dominant fashion, and SLOTHS got beaten in a dominant fashion. So it's kind of equality, I would say.
Yes, and I really like what we've got going there for Reapers, because coming into the split, they were really strong. They came from the amateur circuit. They did the qualifiers, they made them, and they were really strong in there. And then during the split, in my opinion, they kind of fell off, but slowly but surely, they ramped up and got back up to speed. I said seed because I was thinking of an allegory about you reap what you sow. And well, they definitely played the long game because now it worked out. They're in semifinals. They had a really strong games against Dynasty, which is not an enemy you can take on light shoulders. And now they're up against none other than SLOTHS, which came out second of the split after losing the tiebreaker against OMA. So also an enemy you should not underestimate. But they have a shot, and they may take it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we could say two things about both teams. Either one is that SLOTHS, of course, won the two best of ones against Reapers, so they are the clear heads-to-head winner, I would say. So that's something you can definitely say for SLOTHS. But at the moment, like if we just look at the last couple of games, I mean, Rift lost against OMA in their regular season match, then against OMA in the tiebreaker, then they lost 3 games in the playoffs. Meanwhile, Reapers kind of won everything, 2 games against Dynasty in the regular season, and then of course the playoffs games and stuff, so they did everything right. Meanwhile, Rift struggled a little bit in the last couple of games, so it's actually like a a really strong trend for Reapers right now. But I don't know if you have the graphic with the head-to-head record of both of those teams. And Metis, what do we see here? What is your take? What is the biggest takeaway for you?
Yes, well, I think in League of Legends, as always, one very important thing is game length. We can see that Reapers are on the better end there with their shortest game and with the average game time, although the difference on average is really, really negligible. As you can see, I mean, it's 20, 24 seconds. SLOTHS with a very strong KDA, however, difference of 1.1, which is always a good sign to go into a game, especially if you're on the shorter end of games, because in the long term, you have to say it's CS is more important, Reapers slightly better there. But if we look in the end, SLOTHS are usually able to converge that in a better gold lead, and most importantly, in more damage. Of course, here the damage per minute, rather skewed stat, as I like to say, because it looks at the damage done over a whole game. So it doesn't really give us, for example, the DPS they have on average in a team fight, but it still gives a more or less good metric over which team tends to converge their leads into more damage, which is really important, of course.
Yeah, and I would say that we especially saw that Rift really dominated like the regular season. So that's why the KDA is as big as it is. And then, of course, damage and gold was really, really high, just because they almost won everything. And meanwhile, Reapers had really, really strong games in the regular season and really, really bad ones. So that's why they really had those fast victories and those really, really fast stomps, like we saw in the graphic, but also like sometimes they struggled, and that's why the KDA, for example, is a little bit lower. And that's really interesting to see. So it's kind of like two really different teams, and why they are really, really different, we will see in the next upcoming head-to-head with LEKS against Wind and the top lane. So if we can just show you this first graphic from those both top laners, and like we saw a lot of champions being traded here and there, like the Wukongs and the jungle and stuff, but those two top laners, they just have a different champion pool. Like where we can really see that that they don't really play the same stuff. So we will definitely see a clash of two types of players in the top lane. And I really would like to talk about the KDA, because Wind, especially in the weaker games of Reapers, he gets targeted a lot, and because he is such an aggressive player, he dies a lot. That's why his KDA is a little bit weaker than LEKS, and of course, because of all those stomping games from SLOTHS, like LEKS has a really high KDA, but actually, and we see it with his champion pool, with the Jax, with the Quen, he has a lower kill participation because he goes for the split pushing, because he goes for like the isolation, while we see with Sion, with the Darius, and even with the Renekton, those are rather like bruisers who really want to sit in those team fights. And that is why his skill participation is a little bit higher on sides of Wind, but still like two different kinds of top laners. Both are really, really strong, and I really like to see what they bring to the table in this best of 5, which we will see in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely two very important players, with, as you mentioned, Wind being a very, in my opinion, central player for Reapers, because he is really strong, and LEKS, and I'll keep with the allegory, he's not the brightest star of the Rift SLOTHS, because he's not the player that you'll always like see, oh, he's like really good now, but he's the player who's always good. That even in the worst games of Rift SLOTHS, LEKS tends to still hold a very, very good lane, and you gotta commend him for that as well.
Definitely.
Going on from top to bottom, next up is the jungle. On one side, we'll have LEAOI being compared with TRINKET from the Reapers. And we can see again, kind of a similar trend as we've had on the top lane with LEAOI with a higher KDA, although the difference is not as big with TRINKET now because he's only 0.9 behind. Still has a higher kill participation, but once again, the difference not so high. And the same can be said about CSing. And we can see, while, again, very different champion pools, but this time around, as usual with junglers, you have more or less the same goal. You have on sides of TRINKET champions that are really good at the team fight with the Wukong, with the Jarvan. Same can be said with LEAOI, with that G-1 and Lilia, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. But again, just two different types of players, which I really like to see, because then those like different game philosophies will just clash in this best of 5. Let's go a little bit faster through the other 3 players with the mid lane matchup coming up. Of course, we have LoLo and Wukan, and like we said with the first 2 comparisons, 2 different champion pools. Those mana-hungry champions on the one side with Flawless Rise, the Cassiopeia, even the Karma. On the flip side, more those high skill oppressions, 1v1 champions with the Yone, with the Jace. So definitely one is more for the scaling, one is more for the aggression and for those 1v1s. And that's exactly why they have this discrepancy in kill participation. LoLo goes for those team fights and is rather like together with his team, especially with his Karma, while Wukan sometimes gets those isolated kills and just tries to go for his solo play sometimes, which grant him a little bit higher KDA because he's rather isolated, doesn't die as often, but sometimes isn't there with his team. And then, of course, we just talked about the whole top side, but didn't talk about the bot lane. Let's start with Kinetic and with RealMG. What do we see here?
Yes, we can see that this time around the scales tip a bit compared to before, because Kinetic is both in KDA and in kill participation pretty far ahead compared to the real MJ, which, however, has slightly like 0.05 better CS per minute. And it's a recurring theme. Kinetic, really strong on that MF, we can see, sticks out with that 40% pick rate, as does Xayah for the real MJ. But that MF, very strong teamfight champion. When they have it, they always look to find those teamfights and the setup for the bullet time, which, well, granted, is going to give you a higher kill participation and a pretty good KDA. And on the other hand, real MJ usually are more safer picks very often. You have the Xayah, which has the safety of the ultimate, and the roots. You have the Tristana with the jump and the Sivir, which is also pretty safe with that spell shield and the movement speed. Yeah, that does give you the opportunity to CS in a bit more of ease of mind. And finishing off, of course, also very important position with the supports. We have on one side BATUUU and on the other EMIEL.
Yeah, and I really like to see those two players in a comparison just because of the champion pools, like Blitzcrank, Fiddlesticks, even Swain. Like, what are those champions on the bot side? It's really, really crazy. Both really play for their team. Like, look at those skill participations. They're always in there, both in the 17. So definitely two players who often wield stay in the team fight and started even with the Fiddlesticks, with the Rakan, or even with the Nautilus. So definitely to really to support, to really like to help out their team and be in the mix of it and try to fight as long as they can. And yeah, I mean, CS permanent as support really it doesn't really tell a story because they never CS. So funny to mention that. But yeah, with that, we had all of those head-to-heads. And before we go into the first side selection, what is your prediction for the day? What would you say? Who will win? And with what end score will we end here?
Oof. That's a tough one. I think I do still give SLOTHS the upper hand because of how strong they were in the split overall. but I give the benefit of the doubt to the Reapers because Rift have kind of fallen off over the last few matches, and on the other hand, Reapers, they've just, like, it's been a steady climb for them in terms of how they performed. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it's going to be either 3-1 or 3-2, but I could not say one team or the other.
Okay, I will just vote for Reapers, just to be the bad guy in the Rift cast. You can all be biased, but I will say Reapers win 3-1 because I can see that Rift definitely is a good team and they might snag a win here or there. Anyway, we are in the draft and we already see like some classic dance, and I really like this Rise bun here from the side of Rift Slots. I really criticized it from Dynasty to never ban the Rise out of Reaper's hands. And because I think they can just play around it if Lorda gets the Karma, because Karma isn't really a carry champion. But they at least got their hands on their Jinx in the last series. Jinx and Rise was like the team comp they built it around for the side of Reapers, and now they need to draft a little bit different, which I like to see because Reapers definitely have some aces in their sleeves, I would say.
Yeah. Definitely, and I also think it's very important for them to try and shut down this whole top to mid side of Reapers, because that's definitely the stronger side. I think in terms of bot lane, Rift, SLOTHS, I mean Kinetic and BATUUU should be able to hold their own against Real MJ and EMIEL, no matter which picks they do get, although they are of course really good players, but I do think here they have the upper hand, and the Rifts should be more wary of the top lane with Wind, TRINKET, and Lolo in the mid lane. So definitely good starting off with those few bans, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we already see this hard engage. Rakan, Wukong both really try to get into the backline to the Jinx. I think that's really important to like get her in those team fights, just because she will be the main carry, especially now with probably Lolo having the Kindred. So we have one hyper carry, and it's really important to reach her. So Rakan probably even a little bit stronger in that regard, because he is kind of a bit faster, and especially with the jump, he can almost always reach her. So I really like this kind of draft, but there's Wind's cannon, and I really like that because it really cracked the necks of Dynasty in the last series. This cannon was almost unstoppable. I think they had like a good draft with the Cassante against it, because Cassante always tried to hold him back. But especially when Wind gets those early kills and he is such a phenomenal top laner, then it could be really tough to get away from him, and he will just crush your team probably.
Yes, and we can see that there are quite a few picks that are kind of returning of that last game Reapers played against Dynasty, with that Cannon the Jinx, which was also constant dead, Rise and the Zac, which have been banned. But yeah, Rift loves answering to that Cannon with an Aurelion LEKS champion. He's been always pretty good on, but we haven't seen that much in the split.
Yeah. It just fits into the team draft because she can dive the backline as well, and especially against Cannon, like one stun on him, and she can probably 1v1 him. She can even build like a Whiff's End or just some magic resistance. So that could be a way to stop this Cannon. Maybe something that Dynasty missed, so such a carry top laner to really punish the Cannon. Because normally, like, Cannon blind pick is punishable if you have the right answer. So we see here maybe one answer. Of course, Bukan could also play the Aurelia, so it's still a flex pick. And I really like that. We see the Silas ban and the Tsaya ban. So just some safety, especially Tsaya, really good against the Cannon, just because you can always save yourself if he really tries to get in front of you. So good to take that away. And the Talia, so they really don't want to pick the ADC too early, which is kind of a little bit strange, just because normally you don't see ADC last pick, but maybe they have a trick still in the sleeve, so maybe they will trick us with already a bot lane or something. But I guess they just want to to have like the best possible draft for Kinetic, that he can really step up and carry them to victory.
Yeah, it could be a very risky pick either that could be shut down very quickly by support, so maybe getting that out of the way. And I mean, Kinetic is a really good player. We've seen him very often in games of First Loss where he was just popping. There was this pentakill, I believe, on the Sivir, which he did. It was the only, if not, yeah, the only of the thing. Yeah, so putting a lot of weight on his shoulders, and Reapers Gaming finishing off their picking with a Maokai and a Tristana.
Yeah, they just surprise us all because LEAOI is not going for the Karma. He's going for the Tristana, and like that's really risky in one on one side, just because Tristana against Talia, if you get stuck under her plates, then you get stunned if you jump out. So that's kind of difficult to play, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But also it's Tristana against the control mage, so you can play really aggressive and try to punish it. And especially now with just last picking Sivir, I kind of don't like the way that Riftsloth drafted it, just because if you want to pick Sivir, just pick her. And now, because you picked the Talia before that, you could be counterpicked. Because if they just picked Sivir and they didn't knew the mid lane matchup, maybe would have played Karma mid lane. But now with the Tristana, Ukan really needs to play a little bit safe, just because Maokai flash W into the bomb will almost always kill him. So that could be a really tough matchup for him in the mid lane, which is a really strong rotation by Reapers. So I quite like the draft of Reapers. They kind of surprised us all with the Karma flex. Let's see if they can make it. What is your prediction? Who won the draft?
I think Riftsloths looked really good with leaving that last pick on the AD carry. They were teasing and a surprise, and I think that's what maybe pushed Reapers to pick that Tristana and say, okay, no, let's put that Karma on the bot lane to throw Riftsloths off with their last pick. And that's probably something they did not expect, and I personally did not expect, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of the shenanigans.
Yeah. So your prediction is that Rift won the draft?
No, I was very clear. So no, I think Reapers did really well, albeit not having last pick. So I give the draft to them in that regard. But we will see how that carries over in game as Rift, ladies and gentlemen. Reapers Gaming versus Riftsloths here at the semifinals of ESLOL Second Division.
Yeah. I hope we see some crazy plays from both teams, because it's do or die. Whoever wins it gets into the finals, so it's important to hopefully win this first game. I talked about QG, about the first game of such a series, and he said it's all about the mental warfare. It's all about just having the first game won to set up a good mental game. So this first one is really important for both teams, and we have a really interesting draft, to say the least. And yeah, let's see. Some technical issues, maybe, from the sides of Medius, so I will just take over for just a small amount of time. Hopefully he will be right back, because I miss him already as my co-cast. I feel alone anyway. And we heading into the first few seconds of this laning phase. Probably we see some aggression in the mid lane from LEAOI. Usually there are just those level 1 plays where you just jump onto the mage if he uses his ability, for example, or that you try to push with your bomb, go for the level 2 and jump on him. That's usually the way that Tristana sometimes at least plays. But I think Ukan on his Alia is really strong with the Q, so he can always trade back. So it's not the worst matchup for Italia. It's not the best, I would say, either. But he can definitely work around it when he gets his plates. I call them plates just because those crowned thingies where if you jump through, you will get stunned. And I think that's the most important spell in this matchup. So Lawler always needs to be careful to not jump into it. So he needs to kind of predict when Bukan wants to lay it down. And he can always try to jump on the side. So he will just dodge it and still be in out attack range. That's at least one way to play it. And there's LEKS being ganked here on the top lane. There is the tree, and the tree wants blood, and it's blood for the cannon. Really well played, punishing overstaying from LEKS on the top lane. Wind with the first blood. That's really dangerous. We saw Wind carrying games on his cannon in the playoffs already. So giving him first blood definitely helps out in such a kind of difficult matchup because he can get being punished, but oh, there's a small engage on bot lane Ignite versus heal, and BATUUU gets out. Welcome back, Matt.
Yes, I am back, and they do get out, but they are still under pressure with that karma poke there, and yeah, Reaper's starting off really well into this game already, trying to pick up the pace slowly but surely. Yeah, here in the middle we can see Lolo also showed to put some aggression on Bukan, getting him very low.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
That's what I said. It's just a really difficult matchup. Oh, Tower Dive, maybe Wind will get Tower Dive.
SLOTHS are not ending it on that note as they Tower Dive, Wind, pick up the kill, but with that stun, LEAOI is also gonna die. It's gonna be a second kill going to Wind. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's not that worth it just because Wind with those kills can definitely snowball. He still has teleport, so he isn't really losing CS on the top lane. He can even try to set up a slow push and punish LEKS under the turret with a stacked wave, so definitely scary to play now. Oh, good trades.
Yes, Bukan finding the combo. And yeah, the cannon is gonna be very dangerous, very fast, because he does have that advantage of the range against an Irelia. He's going to be able to always poke a bit when LEKS tries to farm, get him low, and then when he's low enough, he's going to be able to find the engage, because once the cannon hits level 6, it goes in. That's pretty terrifying also.
Yeah, and especially after the serious repass against Dynasty, I think Rift needed to think a lot about what do we do with this cannon, and they kind of had this answer with Aurelia prepared probably. So they knew, okay, we let it open and we have it Aurelia and the matchup is fine. But especially now with those 2 kills on cannon, the matchup isn't really getting better, I would say. So he will probably need some more help from Wukong. But I think that's exactly what Rift planned out, because Xayah is Xayah is a really safe AD carry, especially after level 6 with the Wonder Hunt, but also with the Spell Shield, so you can't really punish Xayah. She will just clear waves and just be safe under the turret. So with that, you have a weak side bot lane, so you can play strong side top. That's what we see from Lamau already. He is on the top lane. He goes probably for this cross map play. Maybe they go for the dive, maybe not, but we already see that the map is kinda splitted. But that, of course, is losing Rift a Drake. But we see that the draft plan is play bot side, weak side, and just try to help Aurelia to win the sideline matchup. To maybe have those winning team fights with those many backline diving champions.
Yeah, and it is a good plan here, but you need to step it up in terms of speed then, because we've seen those games where early Drakes are given up, and it's usually not too big of an issue, but it can quickly get to one if you're not careful enough. One Drake leads to a second, and then you know it goes. You're already almost at soul point. So you still have to be very careful about that, especially since Reapers did that one rather early, already got that Drake. Definitely don't want to give them the second one here.
Yeah, I mean, Normally you can play for those topside early game where you just trade dragons for heralds and try to go for a big side laner with those herald golds because first turret, because platings and stuff. But it's usually really dangerous just because you will drop usually 1 or 2 drakes, and then you always need to fight those drakes, and that
Yeah.
could be a tough thing if you fall behind a little bit too hard, or it's always just this timer you need to fight the next drake, and that's sometimes a big disadvantage. So trading drake for top lane pressure is something you can do, but it's a dangerous game, and Reapers can try to punish it.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope then, because even if when you get the heralds, you need to make them worth it in the end. So you need the good moment to position it, to leverage it into gold from the platanks. That's a problem you don't have with the Drake. Once you've done the Drake, you've got the buff, you've got the extra damage or resistance and so on, whichever Drake it is, and it's there. And it does give you an edge in order to fight the next Drakes, while the Herald, if you're not able to converge it into gold, is not going to be useful in the next team fight. So it's most definitely a dangerous game. And SLOTHS are deciding to take that gamble. They are doing the Herald as it just spawned. We've had BATUUU move towards that Baron along with LEAOI. We have Kinetic, which also came towards the mid lane. LOLO now that goes in onto Kinetic, but with a spell shot is able to take that damage in. LOLO is now forced to fall back as TRINKET is with him in the mid lane, while the rest of the SLOTHS are doing the Herald, but Kinetic is going to fall with TRINKET going all in onto him, and the rest of the SLOTHS need to abandon that TRINKET, flash away from the enemies, as now Reapers are able to pick it up.
Yeah, and I mean, that was really well played by LOLO. First I thought, okay, he's just trading flash for some health, but in the end, Kinetic overstepped, and so TRINKET punished it, and because they lost their ADC in the mid lane, they couldn't really contest the Herald anymore. And meantime, we got a lot of farm coming in for the real MJ, so their win condition, their hyper carry in the late game just didn't got pressured, so he can just scale and scale and scale, and that's a second really dangerous game from SLOTHS, because not only is this top lane focused gameplay sometimes hard to contest those strikes, but also if you don't give bot lane any love, the enemy bot laner is really happy. So real MJ, and we saw him carrying 3 games on this Jinx and playoffs already. Definitely likes his position at the moment. Kinda is still behind just because CBO always pushes in him, and he'll lose some minions in the turret. But still, he will just scale up and be a really big threat in the late game.
Yeah, most definitely. And if that CS difference between him and the enemy AD carry stagnates, meaning that he doesn't get further behind, that's already good, because allowing the gold difference to not be greater is already good. And if he stays at it, he's gonna eventually have more damage than that Civvy, and that's all they need, really. They don't need him to be ahead necessarily.
Oh, and I really like how Wind is playing this top lane right now. Even though he is behind on CS, he just tries to freeze his the farm underneath the turret, so he is safe in the 1v1. And with the Herald now, they lose at least 2 platings to the Reapers, but nothing really should happen. There's Bukan, but he didn't place the Reaper's wall. Now it's on cooldown, so he could try to place it.
And LOLO goes all in onto him. He tries to push him away, but it's not gonna land. Is able to flee with the blast cone, luckily. But that was already a pretty tight situation. LOLO could have maybe been a bit more ballsy and even get the kill, but played the safe route, which allowed Bukan to flee.
Yeah, and like we really see a second side of LOLO in this game, because normally he goes for those scaling picks with the Cassie, with the Ryze, with the Karma mid lane. So not really those are crazy. Oh, good.
When BATUUU goes in right after the Drake with LEAOI, the Cyclone is gonna hit, but EMIEL does flash out. We keep the pressure on, but with the slows and the CC, we're not able to find purchase. LEKS is 1v1ing Wind in the meantime on the top lane, but none of them are gonna die. And it ends just with a bunch of people really low, but no kill for either team.
Yeah, and I mean, engage was really close. Top lane matchup was really close. Both flashed, I think, out of the situation. They didn't want to die there. And like a lot of summoners went down with the flashes of Real MJ and EMIEL, of course, needing to go away from LEAOI. And yeah, it was a really close one. In the end, nobody died. But what I wanted to say is that LEAOI has like a second phase now with such an aggressive early game champion. And even it's still a scaling pick, but especially against those control mages, Tristana can play really aggressive, and that's something we didn't really saw much from LEAOI. So definitely he's showing that he's a great player who can play different types of champions and roles. So I'm really impressed by him so far with his performance on this Tristana.
Yeah, definitely strong performance from him. And overall now, we've rather started to slip up on that slippery slope. Because that one Drake did just become 2, and Reapers had been able to pick up the Herald, so currently it's not working out. Riftsofts are still able to kind of stay afloat in terms of gold, albeit losing quite a few platings to that Herald. Notably with that elite that LEKS has on the top lane, although it is quickly made up by LEAOI. But those 2 Drakes, man, that's gonna hurt, and Reapers know that they have the advantage. They decide to go for a tower dive on the bot lane with the turret very low. We're just gonna finish it up, and we get TRINKET, however, very low with the turret damage. And now Kinetic is trying to find some kill, but the Real MJ is gonna pick that up, and LEAOI is coming in to secure it. But Real MJ is able to pick up the double kill before that, and now it's starting to look good for the hyper carry of the Reapers.
Yeah, that was a big getting first turret, getting the platings, getting this double kill. So Real MJ definitely has some gold in the bag, and you already saw that the Wind, especially with his 2 kills, and had the mythic before LEKS now having the plate. So he was really strong now with the plate. The matchup could be shifting a little bit. Because if he gets the 3 auto attacks or 1 auto attack, 2 Qs or something onto Wind, then all the mobility is gone. So that could be a really big power spike there from LEKS. But yeah, at the moment his counter pick didn't really paid off as much as Riftslots probably wanted him to be. But they still have plenty of time, and it's just 3k at the moment, or 2.5k gold. So it's not the biggest lead, or maybe.
Let's see, catching LEAOI onto the bot lane, but LEAOI deals quite a bit of damage, especially with that lasting shot, is able to push LEKS back on his Aurelia. It almost got the best of it. Now Kinetic on the mid lane has to be careful, because EMIEL is joining up with the Real MJ to put some pressure on him. And the Riftsofts are not able to keep the pressure in the middle lane to get that Herald.
Yeah, that's what an interesting 1v1, by the way. LEAOI used the jump aggressively on the same point, so he didn't jump away. He used the jump just for damage in the 1v1, and to later get the reset, of course, with the stacked bomb. So that was really quite a 1v1. Interesting from him.
A very, indeed, bold move from him. And either you gotta give it to Reapers, and they just have incredible information diffusion within their team, being able to tell LEAOI, okay, you can go all in. There is no one who can join him fast enough. EMIEL, or I think it was EMIEL, not too far away. You may do it without it being too dangerous. Or he's just really lucky. I prefer to believe the first thing.
And we just see Herald for Drake again, and especially the second Herald isn't really worth something. So I mean, it's nice to be picked up, but you just lose your third Drake in a row, and I think Rift Slots can really be happy about just a Cloud Soul being spawning in 5 minutes. I mean, still Cloud Soul really strong with Maokai, with Cannon, even like Tristana, after she ults and bursts someone, she will get the movement speed. So this Cloud Soul still is a really big threat, but I mean, it could be worse for them, and now at least they got one turret with the Herald, so at least something. But I don't think that this dangerous game from them at the moment really paid out. They now lost the mid lane turret, and it looks not that good, at least for Rift Slots. And now that we getting into this mid game, we could ask the big scaling question. Because if with those just 2k gold being the lead at the moment, we could go to a long game, and a long game. Oh, Bukan.
To find the engage here on the mid lane, and with the wall, we're going to be able to separate a bit, but the reaction time on Real MJ is just on point, and he is able to flee. In the meantime, Loda does pick up the kill on Liao. Barely, but LEKS is just around the corner in order to avenge his teammates and pick up a kill.
Yeah, a kill he needed to flash for, but still a kill, so something for him. Meantime, we have a tower being probably dropped on the top lane. Okay, it's still healthy enough. But again, the scaling question, and I really need to say that Reapers probably scale a little bit better because they have 2 hyper carries in the late game, a good front line, a good backline access with Cannon, and just an Enchanter who can definitely carry in the late game as well. So I would say, just from a scaling point of view, Reapers looks a little bit stronger because all those bruisers on Rift side, and especially like the Tadia, the Sivir, they don't scale as good as those hyper carries, I would say. Really need to have a faster pace to don't get outscaled, I would say.
But Rift Sloths are doing something that I quite like here, because with their very strong push on that top lane, and don't get me wrong, it was a very bold move, I believe, to get the Herald in order to do that. But they have liberated LEKS, which currently is by far the best standing player in this game, with having the highest CS in game and 2 kills as well. So should be player with the most money in his pocket of them all. And liberating him is pretty good because now he's able to focus on that bot lane. He took the first tier turret, and he's always going to be a thorn in the side of Reapers, which is very important, because if Rift Sloths forces Reapers to not have full team fights, they might have the upper hand in the end.
Yeah, and it's really good for Rift Slot that they opened up both side lanes. So they're still missing like the tier 1 mid lane turret, but they opened up top lane completely, and bot lane at least the tier 1. So that really helps LEKS on the side lane, because now you can really deep push the lane and can really go for those 1v1s where there is no turret to save his opponent. So with that, he can try to play aggressive and try to go for picks on the side lane, which really enables him, because what we see on the heads up was that he has the lower kill participation, because he is rather the split push carry with his with this Jax, with his Gwen, and now with the Irelia. So he really likes to be on the sideline and maybe threaten, maybe go for the backdoor in the later stages, or for inhib to start with it. And that could really be like one thing they can try to play around.
Yes, absolutely. In the meantime, we have quite some vision clearing happening on the top side, with LEAOI and BATUUU and TRINKET just like rolling around, clearing wards, setting some new ones. Drake is going to be up in 45 seconds, and this is arguably the most important objective now in this game, because either Reapers grabs that soul and are going to have a clear advantage going further, or Rift Sloths is able to turn the tide of the current game and pick up their first Drake. And they most importantly, they have to do it in order to get back into the game correctly.
Yeah, and we already saw the teleport from Cannon, so he is there in time. Aurelia still on the sideline. Okay, so she has teleport, so they can always call for LEKS, but like Drake is spawning in 5 seconds. They still need to get mid lane pressure. Now there's the teleport coming up, but BATUUU is really, really low. And look at the damage from the stun, and they can't enter the pit, so they will just lose the soul. And now they try to go for the counter play with the Baron, but like after the soul, they are just fast. Yeah, you say it. So they will stop it. Now they go for the death brush, but with those blue trinkets, they can just check the brushes, and all the counterplay is gone. They just lost soul, and now it's a hard way home.
Yes, it's a tough way because the Reapers are just in parallel of them, and they decide, okay, we can just push that mid lane, take the tier 2 there, and SLOTHS just can't get back easily towards the turrets to stop that push, as the inhib turret is also getting very low, but we find purchase. We get LEAOI down, as well as the real MJ. Now TRINKET has to be careful in the middle of SLOTHS. Meanwhile, LEAOI is pushing back at the rest of Reapers alongside Kinetic and BATUUU. And we do finally get the turnaround after losing so much of 3 kills.
And what a reverse wall! He just cut off Karma and Cannon. They just got 2 fast picks, and with that they will get the Baron, who can't just single-handedly carry this team fight with his wall, and then even like the fast reactions from BATUUU just flashing in, knocking up, and just going for those quick kills was really, really wonderfully played. Reapers just a little bit too far in enemy lines, and just wonderfully played by Bukan, and that's the reason why they gave him this Talia, because those reverse walls can really lead to something.
Yeah, they've got that really going for them. They have all the tools they need in order to seam chaos within Reapers and separate them, and that's really what they need to do if they want to win a team fight. They need to get all the peel, the whole front line away from the real MJ, so that they can easily get the hyper carry out of the equation, be it because the others are too far ahead or too far behind, because this time around the real MJ was way in front with LEAOI when they got to jump on them. So really a lot on Bukan, but LEKS can also do his part there by split pushing all the time, and this Baron is definitely going to be something he likes now.
Yeah. Just look at the inventory of LEAOI and real MJ. It's just equal. I mean, they are just playing the same kind of stuff right now. It's just it's just like a pot versus Doran's Blade. But yeah, just 2 hyper carries with a really, really hard scaling item build. So try to engage there.
Yeah, we find a purchase between the 2 turrets. We get a turret on the sides of Reapers, but we do find the purchase onto EMIEL and the mid lane turret ourselves. Now deciding to fall back. BATUUU getting very low here from the real MJ, but we get far away enough with On the Hunt. Bukan tries to find some purchase there. LEAOI goes back in, doesn't find some, and BATUUU is able to back.
That was a good engage there by LEAOI, and of course by BATUUU again. They just got a mid lane turret, a kill. They traded turret for turret, because tier 1 turret on top lane got killed by LEAOI, then he teleported in a losing team fight. So at the moment, SLOTHS just looking good. Like they got a 1k advantage now, so they kind of turned tides for them. And like I said, the soul, I mean, the soul is still strong and will help out a lot for Reapers, but it's not like the game-winning soul you need to really have to have a big advantage. So with a Hextech soul, for example, with the Infernal soul, or even with the Mountain soul, it would be much scarier for SLOTHS, but this Cloud soul kinda isn't like the biggest deal, so their dangerous game to trade top lane pressure for Drakes kinda paid off. Now they are ahead, and now they can even play, and maybe that's the biggest point, they can now play for the Elder Drake win condition. So just giving up every single Drake just to get Elder Drake and win the game with it. I mean, that's something you should never try in solo queue, but I mean, it works out if you have a good coordination in your team. So it will be a big flip, but if they win it, then they won the game.
Yeah, and I think the most important in there is that instead of, like, they got zoned out of that Drake. They did try to contest it, they got zoned out, especially by Lolo with some insane poke damage. And instead of trying to force it, they decided, okay, let's fall back, let's try to have a shot at the Baron. There was some movement, and in the end they were able to get the Baron. And I think that's the most important part on there, because they were able to turn losing the Soul to Reapers into having themselves Baron and pushing back at the Reapers. Now getting back comfortably into this game. Of course, the gold difference is still rather small, and I think I'll be agreeing on you with that scaling thing. SLOTHS are on a ticking time bomb there. They cannot or should not take too long before they put out Reaper's Fire, because eventually this Jinx is gonna be a real problem unless they pick her out every single fight, which is gonna be hard against that team comp.
And they already got pushed out of the pit, and now they really need to go into a dangerous place, and with 280 carries, they are just really fast, and if they lose it, then they maybe lose the team fight. There's the reverse wall.
Oh, we go for it there. LEAOI in the pit, but gets pushed back out, but we find the engage. The team is able to grab it. Wind is gonna die first, however, this is starting to look pretty good, but we have to be careful that Elder Drake is so dangerous, and we pick up BATUUU as well. And now it's Bakan who dies last. Quadra kill going to the real MJ as Reapers pick up an ace.
Yeah, and the game with the Drake, it was playing with fire, and in the end, the dragon burned you, and SLOTHS lost this Elder Drake. They are losing the base, and with 280 carries, they will probably lose the game, just because with the next wave, they are maybe fast enough, maybe not, maybe they have the last stand on their side, but it will be close, and it's still the Elder Drake buff, so I think Reapers have that.
Yeah, definitely, with TRINKET tanking some bit. BATUUU decides to go in, but he has a lot of damage. He's going to die very fast. LEAOI joins back in, gets the pig on Lolo, stops them in the tracks. But they have lost 2 turrets, one of which for the Nexus and their inhib. And just one big push, which shows Bakan trying there, TPing from behind to find the purchase, but real MJ with EMIEL are going to be able to flee.
What a last stand there from BATUUU and LEAOI. Just really crazy that they defended the base versus Elder Drake buff. But now the Baron is on the table and Cannon is there, but he has no flash, so he can't really get too easy into it.
He has to be very careful. We try to pick the jump onto him, but he's going to find purchase onto Bakan. And we're not going to chase, because the rest of Reapers are able to get back here. We don't want to lose that Baron buff, but so does Kinetic. To the hands of the real MJ. As now Reapers can go back to pushing with the wave coming in already into the base. This is definitely the last stand for SLOTHS. If they lose this, they lose the game. First game of tonight. And Reapers are not hesitant. They take that turret down in a matter of seconds, and they keep on attacking that Nexus. SLOTHS are forced to go into it, but LEKS is gonna die very fast, and with Lolo in the backside, we're gonna grab the first game for Reapers Gaming.
Yeah, it was a dangerous game with the Dragons, and in the end they burned their hands, and with that Reapers will win the first game of the series. What a game! Still, it was really close. I think both teams showed us one of the best League of Legends we saw in the playoffs already. So it was a head-to-head run from both sides, and in the end, Reapers just was a little bit faster, at least, and won this first race. But there are plenty more to come. We will go into a short break. But after that, we will see the second game, Reapers against SLOTHS. Don't miss out of that, and just join us in the next couple of minutes. See you soon.